game, and we had a difference of opinion. So there was an exchange, and then in my mind, it was over.
Is that difference of opinion regarding play calling?
I'm not going to get into that. But in my mind, once it was over, it was over.
He didn't go back in the game. Was that a basketball decision, or was that disciplinary?
It's just a coach's decision. We've talked about these before.
Right, and so that's why I asked. I understand it's a coach.
Well, I thought it worked out well. The other guys stepped up, and we were able to win the game. So
I certainly agree with that, but was it that coach's decision made for basketball reasons or disciplinary reasons?
It was made because I'm the coach, and that was the decision that I made at the time. Now, how many other ways do you want me to answer the same question?
One, you haven't answered it yet. Is Rondo your starting point guard tomorrow?
That's what we brought him here for.
Kudos to the reporter trying to get the answer.
I believe that was Eddie Sefko, who's covered them. Do you know Eddie, who's covered the Mavs for years and years?
I'm familiar with his work. I know he knows the Mavs.
I know Eddie's voice. I'm pretty sure that was Eddie, and way to go, Eddie.
Eddie was not letting him walk away. Yeah,
no.
Answer the question, Coach. Meanwhile, when Rajon was asked about it, Stephen A., he just said, you're going to have to talk to the coach. Obviously, you heard Carlisle speak. You saw what happened on the court. You have history. You know what's going on between the two, and you know Rajon as a player. Whose side are you on if you had to take sides?
Coach Rick Carlisle. Well, first of all, in the interest of full disclosure, Rick Carlisle and I go back more than 15 years. I know this man. The man is an exceptional coach. He's a champion. In the case of Rajon Rondo, this is the thing that I think Rick Carlisle has in his favor. This dude does not talk about players in a negative light. He doesn't throw them under the bus. He doesn't talk smack about them. He doesn't say anything in a press conference or anywhere else that he hasn't already said to their face and would tell them so before he said something like that. So for him to be so public with his disgust over Rondo, there had to be something to that. Now, according to reports leaking out of Dallas, relative insubordination from the standpoint that Rick Carlisle will call plays, Rondo will brush it off, try to do his own thing. Rick Carlisle's not going for that. I can tell you that right now. He might be a psychology major when he was at Virginia and all this. He ain't having that. I mean, the dude ain't having it. I can tell you that right now. Rick Carlisle is not having that. Mark Cuban was absolutely right when he said there's almost much ado about nothing from the perspective that this is something that wasn't the first time, won't be the last time with numerous players, because I've seen it happen with many other players and coaches in the league. I've seen players have to be separated from coaches, okay? But here's the bottom line. You're Rondo. You're approaching free agency. You've been injured. Over the last 2-3 years, you've been shooting 40% from the field. You're averaging 9.6.2 assists. The team was 19-8 before you arrived. They're 20-12 without you. No, they're not worse, but you ain't making much of a difference either. You're looking to get paid, okay? And oh, by the way, when we talk about star point guards in this league, your name is not someone that comes up in this day and age. I'm talking Chris Paul. I'm talking Steph Curry, Russell Westbrook, Tony Parker, Damian Lillard.
Please take that last name out.
Stop it.
Take it out.
I'm not
he doesn't belong in there.
Yes, he does. He's a champion.
A disaster.
No, please,
he's
get over
a disaster.
Be respectful.
I'm not. I'm telling you the flat-out truth. He doesn't belong in there.
He's a champion.
You don't watch him like I do. He's pathetic.
I'm not saying that I watch him like you do, because I don't watch the San Antonio Spurs religiously. But he's a champion. Then you got the Eastern Conference. You've got a Kyrie Irving. You've got a Kyle Lowry, a John Wall, a Jeff Teague, and these boys. I just gave you about 10 point guards before I even thought about Rondo's name. So if you're playing for new money, if you're playing for a contract this summer, I think it would behoove you not to be getting into public on-court spats with your coach because you're not running plays that he's calling.
Wait 1 second, Bayless. Let me ask you a question. I read also this was an issue for Jason Kidd. Is that true? Is it Carlisle's thing to call the plays and sometimes he would get to the point guard?
Sometimes, but here's the problem. Even though Rondo is a champion and he should be respected because this boy shows up in big games especially, let's be clear about something here. You got Jason Kidd was on a different level than Rondo.
Okay.
He's on a different level. And there was years upon years upon years of experience, okay, to go along with the level of brilliance he showed as a floor general. Not to mention there were times when Rick Carlisle leaned on him, and I can't tell you how many times Rick Carlisle raved about Jason Kidd. That ain't the case with Rondo. So it's a different ball game. And if you want your money, okay, whether it's from Dallas or somebody else, that's not a good look, which is why I side with the coach. I don't know specifically what happened because I haven't spoken to either one of them yet. But what I'm saying is you don't want that look when you're playing. Carlisle's got his ring and he's got his contract. Rondo's looking for a new deal.
Somewhere Doc Rivers is chuckling right now because trust me, he went through similar episodes with Rondo when he coached Rondo, and it ended up working out pretty well. But that was the Rondo pre-ACL rupture and surgery,
And without lethal, and without the big three.
without the big three.
With the big, that was Rondo
with the big three.
That's
Yeah, right. This Rondo's a little different than that Rondo. Now, he was leading the NBA in assists for that rather pathetic Boston team that he was playing for earlier this year. He was leading the NBA with 10.8 assists when he left Boston. His assists have now plummeted all the way to 6.2. I'd say that's a precipitous fall. His rebounds, shockingly, have fallen from 7.5 to 4.5. I don't know if that's lack of effort. I don't know if the knee's not the same. I don't know what's happened there. But here's my point. I hope you and I are being objective about this because I was also very close with Rick when he worked here at ESPN. Did a lot of segments on SportsCenter with him. So maybe I'm not objective. Maybe I'm not seeing the forest for the trees here. And I kind of wish one of us didn't know Rick Carlisle because I leaped to his defense in this case. I loved what he did because clearly they have clashed repeatedly over play calls. And this time, when it was clear as Rondo dribbled the ball up the floor and they were down 9 points with 8:10 left in the third quarter, Rick Carlisle ran onto the floor to call timeout and get after him. And it was profane, and it was, to me, deserved. That's the flashpoint. That's the tipping point here. That happened, do you recall, with Jason Kidd early on in their tenure together. And you know what? After they had their big blow-up and clash, Jason Kidd and Rick Carlisle went north instead of south. I'm hoping for the Mavericks' sake that this is that good tipping point where it tips to the north instead of to the south. Rondo's a little different than Jason Kidd. I think he can be even trickier to deal with than Jason Kidd, who could be, as you know, in his earlier years, a coach killer. He was tough on Byron Scott. But in this case, remember, the team screamed loudly by their performance that they were definitely on the coach's side. They're down 9, and in come Devin Harris and then J.J. Barea, and they go from down 9 to up 7 at the end of this game.
That's right.
Isn't that a pretty loud statement that the team made? Like, way to go, coach?
It's little things that you have to pay attention to as well. Rick Carlisle runs out to the court. He calls a timeout. He says something and points to something with Rondo. But then Rondo speaks back, and Rick Carlisle just looked and listened, which means because Rondo went out of sight, but he said something before he went out of sight, and then you could tell by Rick Carlisle watching him that he kept talking, and that's when Rick Carlisle exploded. So it's one of those situations where, again, if you're Rondo and you're not the same player and you're looking for your money, and there are so many point guards in this league who are now officially considered better than you, it might behoove you to watch him out.
Yeah.
Because you're not at a decisive advantage. Now, if this were the Rondo from years ago that sat there and said, wait a minute, y'all giving all of this shine to the big three, I could play too. I support him on that because he's trying to establish himself and he's not backing down. And him being the point guard for a championship contender, you've got to be that kind of leader. But when you've clearly tailed off and you're not yourself, and you're going to then ignore plays, that is just not wise.
No.
It's not wise.
So is it fair to conclude at this point that Rondo has been a disappointment in Dallas?
Oh.
I don't think it's fair to conclude that at this point because I think there's still time. I think what is fair to conclude is that the Rajon Rondo that we see on the court now and we've seen on the court in Dallas ain't the Rondo that we were accustomed to seeing those years in Boston.
Yeah.
That dude has not been present this year.
Is he gone? Will we ever see him?
I don't know about that. I don't know. I got to wait and see because as long as his health is there. See, here's the problem. Rondo can really play. He knows how to be a floor general. But the game has changed and evolved to such a degree, you got to be able to shoot. This brother can't shoot. He might hit a jump shot here and there. I'm shocked. Excuse me. I'm shocked that he hit about 38% of his threes, but he shoot 40% from the field.
He hadn't taken that many.
He's only averaging less than 2 a game.
Yeah, right.
But my point is, he's not a shooter.
He's not
and
a
when
shooter.
you look at these other guys, Kyrie can shoot.
Yep.
Kyle Lowry can shoot.
Oh.
John Wall's got a jump shot. Jeff
a little bit.
Streaky.
A little bit, yeah.
But he gets to the hole at will and
He
he's
does.
streaky.
Yeah.
Jeff Teague can shoot a little bit. All of those point guards I mentioned in the West can shoot a perimeter shot. Literally, you cannot leave them open and say, I dare you to shoot. You can literally sit there and say, Rondo, I dare you to shoot. And sometimes you will win more often than you will lose in that war.
Yeah.
That's the problem Rondo's having right now. He never developed a jump shot, a consistent J.
Yeah, you said that once the trade was made, too. Final thoughts at all?
I'm very curious to see if, in fact, Rondo does start the next game. I'm going to assume he will. But then it'll be very interesting to see how he continues to react to a coach who will insist upon calling the plays.
You mentioned Mark Cuban. He simply said at the end, things happen. This will always happen. He's seen it happen a countless times. It's not a big deal. There's his quote panel there. An expletive happens, not the first time, not the last time. It'll happen again. It's not just Rajon. So he is trying to be, I guess, neutral. What's your name?
Mark Cuban's the boss, but Rick Carlisle's the coach.
He's the one. So you're right about that.
If he doesn't want Rondo to play, Rondo ain't going to play.
We leave it there, ladies and gentlemen.
Trust me.
Another MVP performance from Russell Westbrook without Durant.
Wow.
But here's the question. How far can they really go without KD? That is the discussion after the break. We'll see you in just a few moments.